Hello everyone, my name is Wendy McCarthy. Today, my presentation focuses on an important question in distant education research. How has our understanding of a student, motivation, and engagement evolved, and where should it go next? Over the past 4 decades, researchers in distant education have tried to understand a key question: why do some students persist and succeed in online learning, while others gradually disengage? To exploring this issue, I choose two literature reviews from leading distance education journals. The first, by Clarence in Distant Education, looking back at 40 years of motivation research and suggests a new theoretical direction. The second, by Zekai Zhou in the American Journal of Distant Education, examines how artificial intelligence is currently being used to reshape student engagement in online learning. By putting these two reviews side by side, I hope to show how distance education research is shifting its focuses from just individual learners to the environment, systems, and intelligent technologies that influence engagement. Let's kicking things off with the first article by Clarence Ng, published in the journal Distance Education back in 2019. This first article asks, how has motivation research in distance education evolved over 40 years? Ng reviews 74 articles from 1980 to 2019 using a reflective historical approach. What interesting is how the series has developed over time, from a theoretical descriptive studies in the 1980s to socio-cognitive models like self-efficacy after 2000, and more recently to sociocultural perspectives. The key contribution is the idea of distributed motivation grounded in cultural historical activity theory. Ng identifies three major themes. First, motivation as prerequisite. The idea is learners need to show up already motivated, or they are probably going to drop out. Second, motivation as a enabler, where things like confidence and social connection help keep learning going. And third, motivation from community, the support learners get from peers and instructors. But here's where Ng throws in a critique. He says the field has spending too much time focusing on the individual learners, their treat, their goals, their effort, and that can lead into blaming students when they struggle, while ignore whether the course itself is actually motivating. His point is, maybe we should be asking, is this environment helping learners want to engage? Instead of just, is this learner motivated? This is where his distributed motivation framework comes in. He draws on cultural, historical activity theory. The idea is simple but powerful. Motivation isn't just inside a learner's head, it's emerged through interaction between the learner, their goals, their tools they use, course rules, and others in their learning environment. To understand why a student is or isn't engaged, so we need to look at the whole system, not just the student. Now I think this article has some real strength. The critique is sharp and overdue. The framework gives us a fresh way to think about motivation, and it's actionable. It points to things we can actually design differently in practice. But it's not perfect. It's conceptual paper, so there is no data testing whether this framework actually works in real situation. And Ng only looked at one journal, so he might have missed some important studies published elsewhere. He doesn't go into much detail about how to research distributed motivation, what method to use, so there are some gaps. Overall, this paper makes me stop and think. It doesn't provide new data, but it offers a fresh lens. Instead of asking, what's wrong with these learners? It asks, what could we be doing better? And honest, that is a very useful shift in perspective. Alright, let's move on the second article by Zekai Zhou, published in 2025. This one is more recent and looks at AI. Zhou asked, how is AI used to promote engagement? What data are used? And how is engagement measured? Use a Prisma-guided systematical review. Zhou analyzed 24 articles from 2010 to 2024. Unlike Ng's theoretical focus, Zhou takes a practical, technology-driven approach and frames engagement as multi-dimensional, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive. This big takeaway is that AI can help us track all three in real time. Joe found the 6 main ways AI are being used. First, chatbots. Things like ChatGPT integrated into courses to support students 24/7. Second, recognition tag, facial, emotion, and voice tracking to see if the students are engaged or frustrated. Third, machine learning that analyzes discussion posts and activity logs to spot patterns. Fourth, tools that help teachers and students interact better. Fifth, personalized feedback systems that adapt each learner. And sixth, smart bots, virtual assistant that handling reminders and admin tasks. So there is a lot happening. When it comes to data, Joe finds that the best studies use multiple sources: video recordings, clickstreams data, standardized data sets, and surveys. And they marry engagement in different way too. The key insight here is that combining methods giving us a much clearer picture of what's really going on with the student. And because AI can work in real time, we can actually do something with that information, like step in when someone seems to be struggling. The implications are practical. AI can support autonomy, personalized learning, and enable timely intervention. But there are some concerns: privacy, surveillance, and bias. Also, most studies are experimental, so larger scale adoption is still limited. The research focuses heavily on technology, sometimes overlooking pedagogy. So now let's put these two articles side by side. What do they have in common? Both Ng and Joe are asking the same big question: what actually drives learners to participate and stick with online learning? Both of them see engagement and motivation as multi-dimensional. And both emphasized that it's not just about the learner. Ng talks about motivation being distributed across tools, rules, and a community. Joe shows how engagement can be supported by combining different AI tools and data sources. So both of them are pushing us to looking beyond the individual student and think about the big picture in distant learning. But they're also pretty different, and I think that's where it's getting interesting. Ing's article is conceptual and theoretical. He's synthesized 40 years of research to build a new way of thinking about motivation. Joe's is empirical. He's looking at 24 specific studies to see what actually being done with AI right now. Their frameworks are different too. Ing used distributed motivation and a chat to talk about how motivation emerges across a whole system, and Joe used a multi-dimensional engagement model and show how AI tools can mirror it. And then there is a technology piece. Ing isn't really focused on tech. His emphasis is on social and environmental design. Joe, on the other hand, is all about tech, chatbots, recognized tools, machine learning. So Ing gives us the theoretical foundational, and Joe gives us a practical application. They are approaching the same problem from two very different angles. Let's compare these articles on theory and rigor. Theoretically, Ing builds the foundational use distributive motivation and chat, framing motivation as something shared across people and tools. Joe applies the framework, use multi-dimensional engagement to show how AI can operate. So Ing builds the length, and Joe shows us how to use it. On rigor, Ing offers a strong 40 years synthesis, but lacks of empirical testing. Joe is empirical grounded with 24 studies but limited by narrow search scope. Together, they complement each other. If I had to sum it up in one sentence, Ing provides the why, a theoretical foundation that helps us understand motivation as something distributed across the whole learning environment. And Joe provides the how, practical AI tools that can help us mirror and support engagement in real time. When I put them together, I get something bigger. Effective online learning needs both motivated environment and intelligent tools. Ing gives us the lens to see the whole system, and Joe gives us the tools to actually within it. They complement each other again. So, what am I taking away from all this? For practice, Ing reminds me to design a whole environment thoughtfully, not just the content, but the materials, tools, and interactions that shape the learner's experience. Joe suggests combining AI tools such as chatbots, analyticals, feedback systems to get richer engagement data and spot problem easier. For research, Ing pushes me towards more context-rich questions in distance learning research. Not just, is this learner motivated, but ask, what is this environment doing? Joe gives me something practical too, which is a clear map of the AI landscape and the measurement strategy researchers are already using. So one gives me the conceptual lens, and the other gives me practical strategy. And honestly, as I prepare to work in distance learning and instructional technology, I know I am going to need both moving forward. Thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to your thoughts and discussion.